Sir.
You want me to put that on the table for you? Go ahead, put it up there. All right. Appreciate you guys being here. Figured it'd be easier to kind of get together earlier than have you stick around to the end. I don't think we're going to be picking again here tonight, so probably picking here for a little bit. But, I'd say just, collective effort. A lot of people in the organization that are involved in this process, as I alluded to the pre-draft press conference. I would say it was a collective effort throughout the course of the draft process. There's certainly a lot that goes into this from a lot of different people. I'm certainly appreciative and thankful for the help and the assistance of the people that are involved. Everybody has input. Everybody has a say. The decisions that we make, we've talked about from the beginning. We try to do what we feel is in the best interest of the organization. And we kind of ended up with the result that we had here this evening. I would say, we had talks leading up to the draft with some different folks about potentially moving up. We thought this could be a possibility. I think all along we were prepared to pick at 2, more than likely knew we were going to pick at 2, and then whether or not we could move from 12 to wherever it was, we're contingent upon a number of different factors. Good working relationship with Monty, the Arizona organization, so there was dialogue, I would say, over the last handful of days about maybe some general thoughts and parameters about whether or not if this is something we were interested in doing. And then D'Amico and I, just can't say enough about his involvement, the communication. He and I talk regularly about different scenarios. If we do this, here's what could happen. Okay, here's another option. If we do this, okay, and if I have to pick at this spot, here are some of the players that would be considerations or factors. So it was a team effort. I think this is an organizational effort. We've said from the beginning this isn't about one person. It's not going to be about one individual. It's just trying to put together the best team collectively as much as possible. And I think the 2 players that we selected this evening are certainly emblematic of that. We'll have an opportunity to visit with them a little bit more in depth tomorrow when they're here. But certainly excited about adding Will and CJ to the roster. So with that, I'll take we'll take some questions. John, why don't you go ahead?
Thank you. Talk about Stroud, of course, and then when you traded back, that was really the boldest move by general manager here since 1978 when Phillips got to camp. So it was historical here. Tell us what went into that. You said you've been talking to the Cardinals about it. Actually, pull the trigger. How did you pull that off?
Yeah, it's kind of a loaded question there, but I would say start with CJ. Really productive player. We had him in the building for a visit. He's, I would say, as competitive a player. It has an edge about him in a good way. Loves football, wants to compete, wants to be great. Good size, comes from a good program. Ryan does a great job, with the program down there at Ohio State and, or up there at Ohio State. Certainly with the quarterback as well. CJ's been a productive player. He's been an accurate player. Certainly has a long way to go. I think he'll admit that. I would say there's no timetable on any player. So the goal is for the player, whoever they are, to come in here, work hard, earn their role on the team, whatever that entails. But he's a player that our coaches spent a lot of time on, spent a lot of time with, had a lot of constructive discussions. And we felt that was the best decision for us to make. And as far as the trade is concerned, it just really comes down to doing what we feel is best for the football team. And it was an opportunity to get a player who, we thought very highly of. We knew that he wasn't going to last, and we felt that adding him to our football team was something that we wanted to do. Can't say enough good things about Will, just the person that he is, the human being that he is, his leadership, and unsolicited, before the draft, we received just commentary about, just the praise was just incredible. But we've talked about this, whoever they are as players, they are as people as well. And when you see a consistent pattern of behavior in every step of the way, the messaging is the same, then it says a lot about who that individual is. So, really the trade in and of itself was just about doing what we felt was best for the team and the organization. And I would say trades are always a product or a function of the player. And, I would say just from our perspective, it's not about like what the points tell you on a chart. If you have conviction about a player and you want a player and you think the trade is the right thing for you to do, then you go ahead and do it, which is what we did. So I would say we're certainly not worried about like what the points are and what the trade chart says. I mean, it doesn't really mean anything. So the trade was really driven more by this is a player we thought would bring a lot of value to our team. So that's why we went ahead and did it. Go ahead, Christy.
After 3 tough years around here, to be able to address your need at quarterback and get perhaps the top defender in the draft, I know you've been in the draft room, but do you feel the excitement with the fan base, and are you excited to give them something to be excited about it? Yeah,
I haven't been out of the building here a little bit, but it's hard to say that you've addressed a need when a player hasn't walked in the building. I think we've identified players that have the traits and characteristics that we think we want to have in our building, and it's not just about what they do on the field. It's about other qualities that they possess. I think one thing that's going to be important is for whoever we draft tonight and then the future days here is they have to earn the respect and the trust of their teammates, and they haven't really earned anything to this point, or they're certainly not entitled to anything. So I think we're excited about the opportunity that's in front of us. It doesn't mean really anything at this point. We know that our opponents and the teams in our division, they're going to add good players as well. So all we can do is focus on the Texans and what we're trying to do. So if the fans are excited, that's great. So I think they'll be more excited, when we win games. And, we're a long way away from playing our first game there in September. But I think this is about just repetitive action over the course of time and being consistent. And we're not going to solve anything in one draft, one player, one night. It's going to take a series of actions over time with the right people, with the right mindset, that believe in the things that we're doing, that believe in what we're trying to build, and then hopefully that will manifest itself on the field when we actually do play.
The last couple of years, you've been acquiring a lot of assets, especially draft capital, to make this move here using what you've had. What about the context of this year made you prepared to move for that? Because next year you would have had 2 first rounders. What about this year in the team made you comfortable to make that move this year?
Yeah, every year is different. Every draft's going to be different. You can't really project what's going to happen in 2024. So we talked about this before the draft. I think we put ourselves in a position. We created some optionality for ourselves. So if we felt there was an opportunity that we could take advantage of, then we were in a position to do it. And I would say the way kind of the chips fell, like that kind of happened to work itself out. And again, we haven't played a game yet. These players haven't been in the building. They haven't done anything to this point. Like they've been productive players in their respective programs, but the reality is they're starting over. So what we'll try to do is just create flexibility for ourselves, and you can accumulate as many draft picks as you like. How you utilize those draft picks, ultimately you have to take the information, process it, have constructive dialogue about it, and then kind of go through what-if scenarios. And if you make this move, here's what's going to cost. Are we comfortable with it? Do we have conviction behind the pick? Do we have conviction behind the player? And I would say the staff involvement in that is a part of it. So it's the player, how we feel the player is going to fit our program. What do they bring to the table? What do we have to give up in return? And we're either comfortable with that or not. And I think from an ownership perspective, the McNairs have certainly been supportive of what we're trying to do. I think the one thing that they, enable our staffs to do is really do our jobs and give us the ability to try to make good decisions for the organization. So, from that perspective, we're certainly appreciative of that. I don't want to speak for D'Amico, but I know he feels the same way.
Aaron, Jonathan, when you have a chance to draft C.J. Stroud at 2 overall, right after Price was off, how much was it that you felt good that you scouted both guys, kind of had an understanding of both quarterbacks, and then once one's not available, did you have a another quarterback?
Yeah, and it's not really specific to the quarterback position, Aaron. I mean, really our responsibility and job is to know each position kind of top to bottom and know who the players are, what are their strengths, what are their weaknesses, what's the role that you potentially could envision for them. It doesn't really mean anything, though, until they actually get here. So, but having an overall understanding of the board top to bottom and then across positions, like that's our job, that's our responsibility when we scout and evaluate players. So, and I think we've done that along the way. We've talked about this. I mean, Lip and the college staff do an unbelievable job. So, but that's what they're here to do. So everybody has a job, everybody has responsibility. Every player is important. So however many players we ended up with on the board, the final count, whatever that was, like we're going to know those players. And, we're over the last week or so, we've talked about players that are not going to get drafted that we would want to add to our team. So it's not, well, let's focus on like these two players, these couple players at this position. Really focus on, let's call it however many players there are. It's probably 150 to 200 players, including some of the undrafted players. So our job is to know those players, what they bring to the table, what's the opportunity, when can we add them to the team. And then once they actually get here, then they're essentially starting over, and their progression is going to be based on how quickly they assimilate to our culture, what we're trying to do, and then a performance on the field will ultimately dictate who's going to play.
With Jonathan and Ed.
Nick, at what point did you feel like you all had a consensus kind of conviction on CJ? And what in particular did you like most about him during the evaluation?
Yeah, I mean, I think this process is always fluid, so you never get to, the light bulb goes on and, okay, well, here it is. So it's constant discussion, constant dialogue, constant research, really all the way up until the draft. So, that's what you're supposed to do. That's what our job is. You don't really settle, okay, we have enough. Well, let's just go back and let's confirm. Here's what we think it is. We've accumulated maybe some additional information. Let's confirm it. What does it tell us? Is it consistent with what we've heard previously? All right, and then really you arrive at an endpoint and say, all right, we know any player. We know what the player is. We know what they're about. We're comfortable with it, right, wrong, or indifferent. Every player has strengths. Every player has weaknesses. You're essentially saying whatever they have that you're comfortable with when they walk in the building. So there's never an endpoint where you say, okay, all of a sudden, like, we're good. Like, you're really never good up until you pick the player, and then once you pick the player, then we kind of recalibrate. So now the next step is for them to come in the building, rookie mini camps in a couple weeks. We'll do some sports performance testing, kind of get a baseline of where they are from the strength, from their endurance, from their power. We'll see where they are on the field. We'll go out there for rookie mini camp. Probably won't do anything too substantive, but we'll get a workout, and then really they're going to go into phase 2, so they're behind our players. So it's constantly moving. There's never an end point. So it's like, oh, what are you going to do when the draft's over? Well, we're going to flip the page, and then we're going to focus on phase 2. We're going to focus on our players, and we're going to continue the team building aspect, like whatever that entails. So specific to CJ, I think I alluded to it in the opening. I'd say his toughness, his competitiveness, his leadership, his accuracy, like those are all strengths of his. There's certainly things that he's going to have to work on. There's things that he's really probably never seen defensively, what some of the other teams are going to do. He's going to have to learn our vernacular, our vocabulary of how we call plays, our offense, probably a lot different than what he did with Coach Day at Ohio State. It doesn't mean one's better or one's worse. It just means you're essentially starting over. So it's just like when you go from, college, or you go from high school to college, like you're essentially starting over. When you take your, intro finance class, it's probably a little bit different than, whatever your econ class was in high school, if they even teach that. So everybody's starting over, but, CJ has a lot of qualities that, we like, and which is why we felt comfortable making the pick that we did.
Go ahead.
Nick, could you explain the mechanics of exactly when you had both the second and third pick?
Yeah, so we made the pick with CJ there, and Arizona was on the clock, and then we were on the clock, and we were really going back and forth on the trade compensation. So I'd say the trade itself was actually consummated with about a minute and a half left on the clock. So it's us to Arizona, okay, we have a deal, us to the league, okay, we're doing a trade with Arizona, here are the terms, here are the parameters, they have to match it up. Okay, you're good, you're on the clock, be ready to submit the pick. So there's a lot happening in a short period of time. So we were under 5 minutes, and then we're really under 2 minutes. So we had to get the pick ready to submit on a computer. So as soon as we were on the clock, it was ready to go, get the player on the phone. So, we had dueling phones working there for a little bit. So, and then I'd say we probably made the pick with less than a minute left. So the clock didn't run out, so at least we were able to make the pick.
But when you came in the office today, did you have a feeling you were going to make picks 2 and 3? When the draft started, did you have a sense you were going to make picks 2 and 3?
You didn't really know. We thought, well, maybe there's a possibility. Our job and, part of my responsibility is to explore every alternative and every option. So I would say throughout the course of the day today, there were some exploratory discussions, not only with Arizona, but with some other folks. Well, we're at 12. Okay, we're going to come up from 12. What would it take? All right, here's what it would take. All right, let's see how it goes. And that was really all the way up until, and then I think as soon as Arizona was on the clock, then I would say the pace of those dialogues and discussion picked up.
Nick, what was the
We're going Omar and Sean. Hold on, Matt, we'll get to you. We're going Omar and Sean.
David, you and D'Amico have both expressed, the sentiment that you don't want to put too much pressure on a player you might draft really high. Does having 2 picks really high, 2 potential pillars of the team kind of have to play a role in that?
Yeah, it doesn't change anything, like the expectation. And when they get here, D'Amico will spend time with both players. But I think their job, their responsibility is to come in with the right attitude, with the right mindset, understand that they're part of a team, understand that they now have a home, and understand that they have to earn the trust and the confidence of their teammates around them. So they have a lot of work to do. I think they understand that. They think they just want to be a part of the team and want to be a part of the solution. So we're not going to use any labels. We're not going to put any terms on anybody. We're not going to put any timetables on anybody because, quite frankly, it's not fair to the players. It's not really responsible to the rest of the team. So the expectation for the players that are in our building is the same. D'Amico is going to lay out the expectations about what he expects, and then the job of the player in turn is to respond and to be a good teammate, to do the right thing, put the team first, focus on your job, focus on improvement, focus on getting better, focus on taking advantage of your opportunity, whatever those are. And that's going to be the expectation, whoever is in this building, between now and the start of the season in September. So that's where the focus is. It's not on any, vernacular or about, what their future is or their role in the organization. Quite frankly, they haven't earned it yet, and they have to earn that when they get here.
We'll go Sean and Matt.
Nick,
Sean first.
Nick, late this past season, you mentioned that you started the scouting process a little bit earlier than you typically had before. Was tonight maybe validation for you, or this process leading up tonight almost validation for you with what you initially thought you were going to do with that number 2 pick?
Yeah, I'd say this process is really just about work. It's about constant, consistent work, and it's not about creating any sort of expectation. Every draft is different. Every, player is different, and this is part of our job and responsibility. So I think a lot of people put a lot of time, a lot of effort into this, and it's just one draft. There's going to be future drafts ahead of us. So I think our job is to, as best we can, continually over the course of time, just add good players that are good people, that are going to do the right thing, the organization. So, you're never going to rest on your laurels. There's never really any validation. It's not about that. It's just about, I think, those of us that are fortunate to be in the positions that we're in enjoy what we do and understand it's a process. And, you just have to find ways to continually improve and just try to make good, sound decisions over the course of time. And, if something doesn't go the way you expect or it doesn't work out, okay, why didn't it work? What happened? Let's try to mitigate the risk. Let's try to mitigate the downside. And there's really no guarantee. It's funny, I was listening to a podcast a few weeks ago about 2 professors. They had done a research paper about the draft and just the probabilities and some different things. And I've even said this, and I know everybody looks at me like I have 10 heads when I say this, but, a draft is a 50-50 proposition. It's a coin flip. It's just reality. So there's nobody that's any smarter or, in my case, I am probably dumber. But, there's a lot of risk, and you're not really sure how it's going to go. So you try to take the information, you try to process, you try to make good, sound, smart decisions, and you hopefully that it manifests itself in positive results. So really not going to know the answers to that here for a little bit. But, I think we've positioned ourselves decently. So, it's all about taking advantage of our opportunities, and that's the only thing that we can do, and the only thing we can control is our performance. Everybody within the organization, the only thing they control is their performance on a day-to-day basis, and do it consistently, do it to the best of your ability, and that's all we could ever ask.
Go ahead, Matt.
Nick, congratulations. I was over at the draft party, and you talked about the mechanics of getting to that trade and such. When CJ was picked, the crowd exploded. When there was a trade possibility, everyone was stirring. Then when the deal was done, it was twice as loud. What was it like inside that draft room? I know you need to stay even keeled, but what was the emotion?
Yeah, it's pretty subdued, quite frankly. So you just kind of move from, it's very transactional, unfortunately, but it's very transactional. You go from one transaction to the next transaction. So I have a transaction at 2, all right, now we have a transaction at 3. So until, I would say, there was some emotional outburst probably at the end, when we actually consummated the trade, there's natural excitement. And look, people should be excited. I mean, I'd say people put a lot of time and a lot of effort, a lot of work into this. And when you see something come to fruition, you should have some emotion. I get emotional as well. I know it doesn't appear that way, but I think you also have to be realistic about, where you are. So it's exciting. I think, I'm probably better off not being at the draft party, but we have a job to do. So I know not to take the excitement out of it. Like, we should be excited. We should be appreciative about the opportunity, but it's one transaction to the next. So you got to flip the page, and you can't get too high or low. And then I think once we got to the end, I think, there's certainly some natural excitement, probably because, we knew they wouldn't have to stick around too late because we weren't picking the rest of the night. So,
Were you showing teeth?
Pardon me?
Were you showing teeth?
I don't know. We'll see when the video comes out if I was showing teeth or not. So,
I know the guys haven't been in the building yet. They still have to, just kind of earn the keep on the field. But to that excitement part, what excites you the most about what you're able to do to add to this roster?
yeah, I mean, hopefully we're adding good players. I just think that, who they are as people is certainly significant. Their stories, which everybody will have an opportunity to kind of see their story and kind of what they're about and their roots. I would say, CJ's mom's influence in his life is significant. Hopefully I have an opportunity to meet her tomorrow. But we're all a product of our upbringing and the people that are around us. So I think for them, this is validation of all the work and the time and the effort that those people poured into them. At some point, somebody is poured into us. Somebody's poured into you over the course of our life. So, and this is a momentous occasion, I would say, for the player and the individual, because it's their dream becoming a reality. It's what they've worked their whole life for. So now that the reality is here, now the reality is it's about work. So I think both players have a certain amount of pride, a certain amount of mental and physical toughness, which to play in this league, you need to possess those. So hopefully they're excited about the opportunity in front of them. They're excited about the work that they are going to have to put in. And I'd say both players aren't afraid to hold other players accountable. They've shown the propensity to do that with their respective programs. Now, whether or not they're actually going to do that here their rookie season, but I'd say leadership is more about your actions than your words anyways. So if you put in the effort, you put in the time, you put in purposeful work, your teammates see that, that's how you earn the respect of your teammates. So, Will and CJ should be excited. They've earned this opportunity. I think they're excited about coming to Houston. I think they're excited about playing for the organization. I think they're excited about playing for D'Amico and the coaching staff, which is good. So, but in the end, it's about work. Now this is their job. This is their life. So they're only going to get as much out of it as much as they put into it.
We'll close with DJ Cole and Sarge.
Going back to, obviously, when you got a quarterback, a lot of it comes down to fit. So what about C.J. Stroud looking good to fit for the offense? You guys are going to run under body slow.
Yeah, well, we'll see exactly what that looks like. I mean, it's going to be, new system, a new offense. So I think, job of the staff, and I think, out in San Francisco, they showed the ability to that kind of, you build an offense around your players. It's not the other way around. So, and the players, what do they do well? How do we put them in a position to do the things that they do well? So, not just the quarterback position. So CJ has, a lot of good traits that go along with playing that position. So how that fits with what we're doing offensively. So there's probably going to be some things that, are easier to do than others for him. Like, what's the fit? How's it going to look? We'll see. We'll find out. That's part of learning. It's part of growing. It's part of adapting. It's part of adjusting. I mean, that's what the NFL is about. So there'll be things that he's going to probably be asked to do that he hasn't done before. Maybe there's some things mechanically that he hasn't done that we're going to coach, out of him or coach him on. So that's part of being a pro. That's part of, learning your craft and just trying to figure out, okay, what do they want me to do? Okay, how does that feel? How does that fit? And then just from a coaching standpoint, let's put the players in the best position and try to accentuate their strengths. Same thing with Will. Like, Will's going to be playing in a different system than he played in Alabama. Like, our defense is different than Nick's defense. So, okay, now we're in our defense. So, okay, how is that going to translate over? So we'll find out. So there's an ebb and flow of this a little bit, and it's going to take time. So, we have, what's April, whatever today is. So May, June, we'll get, 6 to 8 weeks of work. then take a little break, and then we'll come back for training camp. And training camp is where we're going to build a foundation, and then we're going to really get a better evaluation of, where the players are, and then we'll see who's most ready to play, come September, whoever the opponent is.
Last two, Cole.
Nick, naturally, you can always go ahead and move up or down the draft board, but when you look at the level of talent at certain positions that could be available when you're on the clock next in the third round, do you like the depth of where you have the other prospects?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. We've actually looked at that and kind of, we know where we're positioned, so we have 65 and 73, and then the 2-4 is the fifth, 3-6, the 2-7. So we have a little bit of flexibility, and what we'll do tonight, we'll go back, kind of see what's left, understanding there's probably going to be another 30-ish, 35 players that are probably selected before we pick. Could we move from 65 into the second round? There's a possibility, but that's going to be player driven. So I think we've identified some players that we like. We also understand we're going to lose players. That's the reality of it. So we're going to lose players along the way. But I think in that general range, kind of how we have the players graded relative to their value and potentially what their role could be, we think there'll be an opportunity to add some players to our team that, we'll be happy to have in the building.
Last one, sorry.
Nick, this team is still in a rebuilding process, and you all had a high draft pick number 2, and there's a lot of needs that still need, there's a lot of holes that still need to be filled. And you took quarterback, you have 2 quarterbacks on the roster. Did you feel that you took a day one starting quarterback in C.J. Stroud?
Yeah, just to the initial part of the question, I've never uttered that phrase or used that terminology about our program. I think, we're just trying to build a program and just trying to put as competitive a team out there as we can. So what a player can do, ultimately it's going to be up to their performance. And, we're not going to put any labels. We're not going to put any timetables on anybody, any particular position, any particular player. So we'll do what we feel is in the best interest of the team. D'Amico will make the decisions, and the coaching staff will make the decisions that we feel are best for the team. We'll put the best players out there that are ready to play and that are prepared to take advantage of opportunities. So as far as kind of, to Omar's question, we're really not about labels. We're really not about terminology around here. We're about consistent, purposeful work, trying to build a program that's sustainable over the course of time. So however we get to that point with whoever those players are, ultimately that's what our intention and our goal is going to be.
Thanks, Nick.
All right. Thank you.